Van William, I'm very glad that you are here. I hope you had a good journey, a good flight to Germany. It hasn't been a long time since your last visit in Germany. Nevertheless, a lot of things changed since then. So we have a rising number in participants of the actual walks against the measures of our government. The so-called Spaziergänge with increasing numbers of participants. This morning I saw a video of you participating in such a Spaziergang. And my first question is, what is your impression? So how is the energy in Germany going? Are the Germans finally waking up?
Well, Lukas, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
On my flight yesterday, you asked how it was. I was a little worried that it may have been the captain's first flight because we were all seated. They said boarding complete. We're ready to go. And we had no fuel for the plane, no gasoline.
Really?
So I was wondering if maybe it was the captain's first time, but that wasn't true. It's just they forgot to fuel the plane.
Yeah.
So we ended up sitting for an hour and 35 minutes waiting to try to find gasoline. So I'm lucky to make it at all, but I'm glad that we're here. That was very insightful last night, walking with that group, because if you read anything coming out of the government, the President Steinmeier or people in the government, they say the people who are walking are extremists, and they are dangerous people, crazy people. But there was no one but normal middle-class families last night. And that was a random walk. I could have chosen any walk, and they would have been the same. So the difference between what the government is saying to the world about Germans walking and what you find in the street in over 2,000 cities is entirely different. It's the direct Gegenüber. It is the opposite.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, what is the purpose of that? Why would we want the world to believe that Germany is full of extremists and right-wing crazy people, when in reality you couldn't find more normal, middle-class, upper-middle-class Germans and families with children and their dogs and friendly walks, people who are friendly to each other. And so I don't think that they can keep going for very much longer with this opposites. I think reality is what you experience, and so I would be surprised if your freedom does not come pretty soon.
Yeah, great. This is great news. Yeah, that's completely my own impression too. So I walked on several walks in different German cities, and I can see the numbers are rising, and also the reactions from other people from outside the Spaziergänge, outside the walks. They are giving positive feedback, so they give thumbs up. So
And last night we had cars driving by us in heavy snow, and people would honk their horns and wave. That is new. That is a fresh newness. Also, we have people walking with us now who are vaccinated. And they say, fine, because they know that today it's trying to put 70% who are against 30% who are not, and that doesn't sit right. That doesn't feel right with Germans. So many of the people who are vaccinated have great deal of sympathy or empathy with the people who are not, because human dignity is that we get to make our own choices about our health. We don't, no one can force us to take a vaccine or force us to do something when within our spirits and our heart we say, no, something's wrong. So, or at least we give people time to think through these things, and we didn't do that this time. Everything was immediate. And no one had time to contemplate. So, but no, there's a friendliness in the air. People are more loving. They're more caring for each other. And they're more tolerant than they were 1 year ago.
Yeah, definitely. So it was my impression, also my impression. So I was on protests against the actual politics. So last summer. And so first of all, the participants in the protests were different peoples, and nowadays, so it changed completely. So as you said, vaccinated and unvaccinated people are protesting together for a free choice, for the decision of getting vaccinated.
And Lukas, when you say free choice, what comes to my mind is dignity, human dignity, a Würdigkeit. And that is, what does it mean to be a human being?
Yeah, exactly.
And we do get to make choices about our own health and our own body. And people, when they're free, they make good choices. But when they're trapped, then they make bad choices. So when people feel free, they don't want to infect another person, so they will naturally stay away from them. And when they see a sick person coming to them, they will naturally, cover their face. So these things come from freedom much better than they do coming from regulations.
So you had a recent video where you were talking about the red line that is reached. So the red line of the Germans. You also mentioned it in some of your lectures. So the red line is a kind of point of no return. So if someone is passing it, so the Germans are getting angry and they are waking up. So do you have any? So you said it's a kind of very typical thing for Germans. Do you have any other examples in German history where this red line were passed?
Well, yes, and it's not a negative, and it's not a matter of people waking up and being angry and wanting to go after something, because we don't want violence. You don't want violence, and neither do I. But Germans uniquely have a sense of falling asleep and staying asleep. And that goes back into the 18th century, the 17th century, where the German appears to be a little bit as if they are letting the world pass them by. And so they appear to be asleep to other Europeans. But that sleep, let's say, is more of a screensaver, like on your computer. The German says, I'm not going to get excited about everything that goes by me. Some Europeans have a tendency to get excited about every event, and that's fine. That's a certain nature. But Germans don't have that nature. They will observe, and they will think, and they will let things go for a while. And the red line can be many different things. It can be too much control. You don't want to control Germans very much, because Germans are disciplined people. They're naturally disciplined people. And so to control Germans is the wrong way to handle them. With Germans, you give them information. You give them truth, and then you let them alone. You give them time to think about things. Maybe the first few days they will think one way, and then the thinking deepens, and then it deepens again. And over time, they'll come to the right conclusion. That's what Germans have always been about. So trying to control them is just the exact wrong way to get Germans to act in any type of a way. I think there are probably, maybe every generation or every second generation has a small Rote-Linie where they say, no, that's enough. Genug is genug. I've had it, that's enough. And now we need to do something different. And usually their leaders, whether it's a mayor in a community or whether it's a larger leader, will say, okay, I got it. It's time for us to make a change here. And so it's not a dramatic thing, but this time it will be maybe a little more dramatic because the 75-year cycle is over. So now the change must be dramatic. So the Germans have to move much farther than they've always had to move in the past. And then you have the world circumstances changing drastically too. People said, William, why did you come back in February? Why didn't you wait till May when the weather is nice? And the reason is because the Ukraine situation has the potential to be dangerous. And when there's danger for the Germans, I have to be here. I can't not be here. If you love someone, then that love is not only for the sunshine days. Oh boy, we'll have a pretty day in May, we'll take a walk in the park. That love is for the dark days too, and it's for the storms as
like
well.
In the saying you posted in the, I think it was the last chat room. So you posted an old German saying. I'm not getting it together now, but.
Yes, well, all love is the same way, and what you love and what others love. You can't only be there when things are going good. You have to make sure you're there when things are bad and when there's fear. And Germans have been trying to ignore the Ukraine situation as much as Bob would say, well, that's not, But you can't ignore it when you have war right near your borders. Exactly. I live in Illinois, but if there were war in Alabama, I would have to be concerned about that because if you have hundreds of thousands of people with sophisticated modern weapons coming together in conflict, then the war doesn't stay in Alabama. The war comes to Illinois. And it's the same way here. You can't have an isolated major war with weapons that travel 300 or 400 miles if they miss their target, such as a Stinger missile or an anti-tank missile. It can miss its target and it's still seeking heat for 100 miles or more. And so it doesn't care whether it's in the Ukraine. It keeps going. And so I wanted to make sure that I was here when there was time of angst and time of fear. I don't want there to be war in the Ukraine, but I'm not sure how we can avoid it. Lukas, love is treating people with respect and dignity. That's all it is. Respect and dignity. It doesn't mean you have to like them or you have to like everything they do, but you treat them well. And you listen to them. You respect them. And then at the end, you may say, well, I respect you, but I don't agree with anything. But when you treat Vladimir Putin or Putin the way that we have treated him, then you're going to have conflict. Because he is a leader of a very large nation who has a tremendous amount of power in his, within his reach. And so when you tell him he's nobody and you don't listen to him and you tell him that he's not welcome, then you will have conflict because the Russian people see that. They don't like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid we probably won't be able to avoid conflict unless we have a complete change of the way that we treat other people.
Yeah.
In this case, the Russians. So I need to be here if there is if there's a war that breaks out anywhere in Europe. Then I need to be here because we need to have the right perspective.
Yeah.
What's this all about, and how should we think about it?
Yeah.
So
you're still thinking the war with Russia is very likely at the moment?
Well, I think it's probably 60%
60%,
likely.
yeah.
No one wants it, so we should be able to avoid it. But as long as America and Britain continue to threaten, as long as we continue to threaten and say we're going to do this, today they said we're going to punish Vladimir Putin's closest friends.
Yeah.
So you take somebody's closest friends and their family and you hurt them.
Yeah.
How can you avoid conflict?
Yeah.
So I think it's a 60% possibility we will have a shooting war.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start shooting, once the first person is wounded or killed, first person, you can't get things stopped.
Yeah.
Because even if it's an accident, now they have to pay back. They have to pay back. And so in the past, these things have lasted 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And that, with modern weapons, that's unthinkable.
Yeah. So what do you think is the real purpose behind provoking Russia in this way? So what is the real purpose of the Western forces? So I think it doesn't look realistic that we could win this fight there in the Ukraine. So so what do you think?
Well, you could never win a fight in Ukraine because Russia comes right over the top of Kiev. And so Kiev is just a short drive from the northern part of Russia. You can't win wars in Russia to begin with. You don't go into Russia in the winter and say, I'm going to defeat the Russian forces, because of the way that Russia, the geography of Russia and the expanse of Russia, no one has been able to do it. NATO is certainly not capable of doing it. And there's no willpower among normal families in the United States. Most families in the United States could not find the Ukraine on a map. But they don't even care enough to go find the map. Okay? So how do you then tell this nation, we are going to go to war with Russia, which means we're going to send 400,000 or 500,000 American troops and all their equipment and all of the debt that goes along with that. And the American public says, no, we don't want that. We don't care about that. You can't do it. You can't have a war unless the normal American people say, yes, I agree. Which means the only way you can have a war is by massive propaganda. And that is, the Russian people are the evil empire.
This is what these are,
and these are horrible people, and Putin is a monster, and so they need to be destroyed because they're horrible. But if you've ever been to Russia, the people aren't horrible.
I have a lot of Russian friends, so my ancestors were living in Russia for a while, so
I mean, the Russian mother has the same exact priorities in the same proportion as the German mother. So how can it's impossible. So you have to use propaganda in order to do these things. And we have to be smarter than that today than we were 100 years ago.
Yeah. And do you think it plays a specific role? So do they want to involve Germans in this specific way in this conflict?
Yes. Oh, yes. You have to involve. Yes. I mean, when England first decided it had to threaten Russia maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What did it do? It sent troops where? To Germany.
Yeah.
It reactivated its bases in Germany.
Yeah.
It sent armored personnel carriers and weapons to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
The English don't want to fight a war in England.
Yeah.
That's an island of fear. So where do you want to fight the war? So what is the United States' first response? To build up Ramstein.
Yeah.
But we have 40 bases in Germany, not one.
Yeah.
You only hear of one, but we have 40.
40.
Yeah. And the British have also many bases, and they've been sitting there. They're in Germany, but they're not part of Germany.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense, does it? Where are they located? They're in Germany. Yeah. And yet we say they're not part of Germany.
Yeah.
So they're part of England. So England has, well, it makes no sense. So the U.S. is going to fight a war against Russia from Germany.
Yeah.
England is going to fight a war against Russia from Germany.
Yeah.
So where will the battle take place?
In Germany.
It won't take place in New Jersey, and it won't take place in England.
Yeah.
And have you noticed, Lukas, that neither of the ones who are doing the threatening are European countries?
Yeah.
And neither of them have any vested interest in having a war on their own territory.
Yeah.
Only in Germany.
Yeah.
So you ask the question, and I've answered it.
Yeah.
Germany will be the center of the conflict again, because the attacks are coming supported from Germany.
Yeah.
That's where you have to strike back.
So the purpose behind all of it could also be to destroy Germany again.
No, I don't think anyone cares about Germany, Lukas. That's the problem. It's not a matter of actively saying, let's destroy Germany again. Germany is useful to people.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a matter that the problem with Germany is that no one really cares about Germans.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the problem. This problem is not hatred or anger or a desire to hurt. It's that most people simply ignore Germany and Germans. They simply are not part of the equation.
Yeah.
And so people in America, it's funny that people in Germany think that they are very well liked around the world.
Yeah.
Okay. People in Germany say, well, you know, we make wonderful cars and people like us around the world. And Deutsche Welle ran many stories about Angela Merkel, how popular she was in America.
Yeah.
Angela Merkel's not popular in America.
Yeah.
Not even 5% of Americans could recognize her name.
Yeah.
If you called them on the phone in a poll and said, what do you think about Angela Merkel? 95% of Americans say, who is that?
Yeah.
Is that a rock group? You know, who is Angela Merkel? Maybe a few on the East Coast would know who she was, but they would not all have the same opinion of her.
Yeah.
Some would say, no, she's not very good, and others might say. So Germans have during the 16 years of Angela Merkel, they were told that they were very popular in polls. But what people were saying was, we like German products.
Yeah.
If we're rich, we want to buy a Mercedes or a BMW. And we like, you know, if we're a dentist, then we want to buy German products for our dental office. And so what people were saying is, we like German products. But if you then ask the second level of questions, do you like and trust Germans? The answer would be much more ambiguous.
Yeah.
Okay? We like and trust them as long as they are small and down, but if they were ever feeling good again, then maybe we wouldn't trust them at all. So I think that it's not a matter of anyone wanting to destroy Germany, but Germany has no foreign policy and it has no self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand me? There's no self-interest here.
Yeah.
So the leaders don't think of Germany first, German leaders.
Yeah.
They think of what do I need to do to please Brussels, London, New York, and how do I keep these people happy?
Yeah.
They don't think about how does this affect a German family living in, and then you name the city.
Yeah.
And from outside, we protect our own interest.
Yeah.
Die Vereinigten Staaten schützen die Vereinigten Staaten.
Bombs near the U.S.
Yeah.
None. England doesn't want any bombs near the island or their Commonwealth. But nobody minds about Germans.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
in one of your recent lectures, you said something like, the world forces are trying, they always try to control Germany because whoever is controlling Germany has big power in the whole geopolitical situation in the world. So how does this fit together? So now you said, so they don't really care about Germany, but you said they're also trying to control Germany because of its economical outcome, probably.
Well, let's look at what they are trying to control.
Yeah.
Because Stalin knew that anyone who controlled Germany after World War II would be the leading power in the world. He knew that.
Yeah.
But he couldn't get control. We only gave him a small bit.
Yeah.
So if there were 400 German scientists, he got his 100.
Yeah.
And we got our 300. So he only got a small piece. And the piece he was given was not the most productive piece.
Yeah.
So America controlled Germany after the war. And so what we're talking about, the delineation is, it's the control of the German mind, the German systems, the German worker, and the way Germans make systems that work in Nachhaltigkeit. That is what the world wants. And that tug of war has went on, because the way Germans do things, nobody else does them that way. So let's look at it. The way you control the world is by controlling German systems, German mentality, German intellect, German workers, and the way Germans go about systemizing things.
Yeah.
Think about SAP.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to run a major operation worldwide, SAP has to come to help you. So that is what is valuable. That's where the treasure is, the shots is in that. Geopolitically, everyone knows, not everyone, but those who have power know that you must control German systems in order to keep the power. It's German people that no one seems to care about. Now, the problem, Lukas, is that also applies to Germans who don't seem to care about themselves.
Yeah.
They don't love themselves as Germans. They don't love others as Germans. In fact, if a person acts too German, then they are hated by other Germans.
Yeah.
But see, so we have two different Germans living within each soul, and we have two different Germans living side by side with each other.
Yeah.
We have the German who was born German and feels German, and then we have the post-war German who has been trained from the day they were born that Germanness is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so being born German is not a blessing, it's a curse. And so you have to always reject it.
Yeah.
When you see the flag, or when somebody wants to sing a German song in a restaurant, then shh, quiet, quiet. No, no, no. And it's almost like a panic that takes place. It's like a light comes on. They say, uh-oh, there's Germanness. The problem is, I'm a German. So the German soul is split down the middle. Yeah. And the German nation also has this split in it. So Germans don't love themselves, and other people don't love Germans. My wife and I were just with a man from Belgium, and he was a very wealthy man. He had an au pair who took care of his children, and we were sitting with him at the table, and someone put some German music on. Mm-hmm. And he turned and whispered to me, because he thought I was one of him. Yeah. You know? And he whispered to me, he says, "None of us trust these people." And I said, "What do you mean, these people?" "Oh," he said, you know, the Germans. Yeah. He said, "None of us in Europe trust them." He said, "They smile now, but they haven't changed at all." I thought, here is a man in the modern world who says they haven't changed at all. Yeah. They smile now. So in essence, what he was saying is they are nice Nazis, not bad Nazis, but they're still Nazis. Yeah. So that attitude still permeates below the surface in Germany. Mm-hmm. What happens when the Greeks don't get their money immediately in the latest request? What happens? Headlines in the paper. Yeah. And all the words come back again instantly. Yeah. So this is what we have to change. Yeah. Germans have to become themselves again, which means they love themselves as they were created to be. Mm-hmm. How can you hate yourself when you are created to be that way? You can't. Yeah. And then other people need to see the real German, not the phony German, not the one who's trying too hard, smiling too much. You know, when I first started coming to Germany, if you passed someone and they smiled at you, you thought they were crazy. But today, Germans feel like they have to smile at people. So, so all I want is for Germans to be completely, totally natural, completely relaxed. But you don't see relaxation too much in Europe. They're always looking over their shoulder. Yeah. They're always worried about something, and so they can't ever just simply be themselves. So that is what I want. And then the rest of the Europeans will start seeing something more natural than they see today. Mm-hmm. And then over time, their opinions will change. Yeah. Because there's nothing wrong with being German. Yeah.
And do you have an idea how we can overcome this kind of Bletchley Park? I'm calling it Bletchley Park mentality. So
well, Bletchley Park was the most sophisticated psychological operation ever done to human beings. In fact, nothing done since has been as good or as effective. The problem with Bletchley Park is they have become more sophisticated as they go along, and they keep the pressure up, which means when you go to kindergarten in Germany, Bletchley Park is there for you. And when you go to work in Germany, you go to the university, Bletchley Park is there, and it talks to you. Yeah. It has its own voice. Yeah. You have to find someone to trust. Yeah. Now, there's no reason to trust me. I'm an old man, okay? And I don't speak German. I'm not a faker. I'm not faking, not speaking German. I don't speak German. And when I do, most Germans will pat me on the shoulder and say, "Speak English." We understand you, William, when you speak English. So speak English. Yeah. So you have to learn to trust somebody first. Yeah. And then when you believe somebody who's telling you it's a good thing, it's a wonderful thing to be German, Not just a good thing. You're lucky.
Thank you.
You know, then if you hear that enough, you start thinking, Bletchley Park doesn't sound right. See, every German knew there was a Bletchley Park, but they didn't know what the name was. And no one would confirm it to them. No one would say to the German, yes, there is a Bletchley Park, and here's the name, and we have been tricking you. No one ever would say that. And so now Germans are hearing a different voice. Says, there was a Bletchley Park. This is the name. These are the faces who were there. This is the attitude that they had towards Germans. I mean, they hated Germans more than they hated anything on earth. And so destroying Germans was a noble cause for them. And they thought they did something wonderful for the world. So now the Germans need to hear a new voice, a voice they can trust, and a voice that says, that is resonating to their heart, that William could be right. Maybe it's a wonderful thing. We thought we were cursed, and in reality, we were blessed. So we've had the wrong attitude, the wrong perspective. So, and that will take time, but it won't take, it took 75 years to get Germans totally brainwashed. I don't think it'll take more than 2 years for them to get the truth and say, okay, no more of the brainwashing. Okay.
Okay, 2 years.
Well, yes.
Taking you by word.
Well, I don't think it'll take any longer than that. But you've heard me say this, I would rather die than betray a German. Because Germans cannot be betrayed now. You have to speak truth to them. They have to understand that you are speaking directly to them, and then their minds will begin to work again. And when their minds work, they'll say, William may be old and he may be ugly, but what he's saying makes sense. And so then they will start to relax. And then when they relax, Europe will relax, and the Belgium guy won't have to whisper anymore. You know, now he can say, well, we live next to them. They're our neighbors, the Germans, and they seem okay now. You know.